part 1, we saw the deaths of some characters from the Shibuya arc. Now, here is part 2 of this increasingly impactful video. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, I'll leave the link in the video description. Go check it out, it's unmissable. With that said, let's move on to part 2. Now, let's discuss 2 deaths that I've chosen to cover together for convenience, as they are part of a larger context that leads to one of the series' most tragic deaths later in this video. We have the disaster-cursed Dagon and the head of the Zenin clan, Naobito, whose deaths occur before Jogo's in the timeline. Dagon, if you remember, is the curse themed around aquatic disasters. He spends most of his time as a small octopus and evolves upon sensing Hanami's death, indicating he is a cursed womb. Already transformed, Dagon fights Nanami, Naobito, and Maki. Completely overwhelmed by Naobito's speed, second only to Satoru Gojo, Dagon expands his domain. Inside the domain, the tide turns completely, and Dagon crushes the trio, tearing off Naobito's arm and injuring Nanami and Maki. The situation stabilizes only when Megumi invades the curse's domain, brings the special-grade weapon Playful Cloud, and expands his own domain, canceling the guaranteed hit that was overwhelming the sorcerers. Shortly after, to eliminate Dagon's chances, the sorcerer-killer Toji Zenin arrives in the domain. As I explained earlier, he had been partially revived and was now acting purely on instinct. Toji steals the Playful Cloud from Maki and, almost effortlessly, exterminates Dagon. While Toji drags Megumi out of the area, the sorcerers cannot assist because they notice Jogo's presence. Filled with rage over Dagon's death, Jogo quickly incapacitates Maki and Nanami, burning them deeply. He then confronts Naobito, who dies instantly from 2 magma blasts, demonstrating Jogo's absurd power level. This is also the moment when Maki receives all those scars she has later on. Moving forward chronologically, let's talk about Toji Fushiguro's second death. Toji was instinctively pursuing Megumi for a fight. The boy tries to counterattack, but besides being exhausted from previous battles, he is vastly inferior to Toji. Megumi's only advantage in this situation is that Choso is nearby, meaning he could fight without worrying too much about getting non-lethal injuries. Megumi uses his own body as bait, taking a non-lethal hit to counterattack up close, but even that fails against Toji Fushiguro's surreal physical abilities. Megumi considers summoning Maharaga and sacrificing himself to defeat the monster, whom he didn't even know was his father. However, Toji, upon seeing Megumi, recalls a memory. He remembers selling the boy to the Zenin clan and, despite everything, hoping the clan would be a better place for his son than it was for him. Toji, who had been silent and fighting on autopilot, asks, "Hey, what's your name?" Megumi responds that it's Fushiguro. Toji smiles and says, "Not Zenin, good for you," then uses the Playful Cloud to pierce his own head. Once again, Toji's unique body allowed him to overcome even the curse technique that kept him alive, realizing Gojo had fulfilled his last request. Before we move to the top 3, let's revisit the lead-up to the Shibuya incident, specifically the fight between Kokichi Muta, known as Mekamaru, and Mahito 12 days before the Shibuya events but directly linked to the arc. If you watched the first season of the anime, you might recall the suspense around a traitor. It's revealed that this traitor is Mekamaru, who did it to have Mahito use his soul manipulation to heal his frail body, planning to call for help immediately after being healed. However, after his body is transfigured, Kenjaku raises a barrier preventing Mekamaru from escaping or calling for help, forcing him to fight Mahito and then Kenjaku to warn everyone about the plans for October 31st in Shibuya. The fight between the two begins. Mekamaru had accumulated many years of energy and starts using it against the curse. Mekamaru has a heavenly restriction, granting him vast amounts of cursed energy and a wide range for his puppet control technique in exchange for a fragile body. Now, with his body healed by Mahito's soul manipulation, Mekamaru can use years of accumulated energy efficiently. Using a giant version of his standard robot, Ultimate Mekamaru, and capsules allowing simple domain usage, he manages to pressure Mahito, even inside the curse's domain. However, it's not enough. Mahito tricks Mekamaru, making him think he's been exorcised, then surprises the giant robot and gains access to the cockpit where the sorcerer is, killing him and preventing Mekamaru from fulfilling his dream of meeting his friends. If this fight had ended differently, maybe all the deaths in Shibuya could have been avoided. Finally, let's move to the top 3 most impactful deaths of the Shibuya incident. I'll discuss them in chronological order for clarity, so you can decide which was the saddest. Leave your thoughts in the comments. First, let's recap. Remember when I mentioned Jogo attacked the trio Nanami, Naobito, and Maki after the fight with Dagon? Only Naobito died in that attack. Maki was rescued and treated by Shoko, and Nanami survived with half his body severely burned and went after Megumi. he actually encounters the last special grade curse of the day. Despite being on the brink of death, Nanami defeats dozens of transfigured humans, but is touched on the chest by Mahito, who was observing everything. Just then, Itadori arrives, right after witnessing Sukuna's domain expansion massacre. It's worth noting that Mahito treats Nanami like an old acquaintance, which isn't surprising. When they first fought, Mahito had just been born, so Nanami was, in the end, the first challenge that forced the curse to evolve. But in the end, it's Mahito we're talking about. Nanami questions why he returned to being a Jujutsu sorcerer and, in the end, leaves everything to Itadori, careful not to curse him by mistake. With a touch of idle transfiguration, Mahito destroys the first-grade sorcerer's torso, causing instant death. Itadori bursts with rage against the curse once again. Despite Mahito using several humans as a strategy to mentally wear down the sorcerer, Itadori manages to keep a balanced fight. At a certain point, Mahito suddenly bleeds, and Itadori immediately understands what happened. Nobara was fighting a Mahito clone somewhere. The sorceress's resonance allowed Nobara to hit Mahito's soul, the only real way to cause damage. This was possible because she was fighting a Mahito clone, passing the damage to the original through his soul. Itadori saw this as a blessing. It was proof that he wasn't alone and more than motivation to defeat Mahito. However, things take an unexpected turn. The original Mahito splits into several pieces and runs toward the stairs leading to the surface, while the clone runs toward the basement, with the sorcerers chasing their respective opponents. Nobara runs with her guard down regarding Mahito's palm, since the clone couldn't use transfiguration. This allows Mahito to use his clone as a blind spot and switch places with it, touching Nobara's face in a swift move. Unfortunately, nothing could be done at that moment. Nobara recalls the good times and the friends she made at Jujutsu High, moments before her face is destroyed by Mahito's transfiguration. This was the last straw for Itadori. The events in Shibuya weighed more than his will. At that moment, Itadori hits rock bottom, receiving a black flash from Mahito, mentally and physically incapable of moving forward. Itadori lost everything against Mahito, who continues to beat him while realizing they are alike. But before receiving the coup de grace, Aoi to-do arrives in one of the most poetic moments of the series. Deaths and misfortunes were the reality of a Jujutsu sorcerer. They couldn't, in any way, be limited by it. All that was left was to keep fighting and moving forward, without looking for meaning in bad things. It was up to Itadori to remember what had been entrusted to him by everyone. With to-do's words and the help of another sorcerer's technique, Itadori was able to fight again. The final showdown had begun. They trade blows, and after an intense start, Mahito realizes to-do would be a serious problem. His only option was to deal with him using a domain expansion. Recalling Satoru Gojo's 0.2-second domain expansion, Mahito replicates the feat, being quick enough to avoid Sukuna's retaliation and even rips off one of to-do's arms to deny his innate technique. Mahito hits to-do with a black flash to finish, reaching a new level by seeing the true form of his soul. Itadori versus Mahito, final round. Itadori's only chance was to land a full black flash and incapacitate the curse. But it wasn't easy. Mahito was incredibly stronger than before, enough for Itadori to no longer connect his blows. Then the opportunity arises. From atop some debris, To-do says his technique isn't dead and makes a motion with his palm, even without an arm. But nothing happens. It was just a bluff. His innate technique was indeed gone, but it was enough to distract Mahito and allow Itadori to land a full black flash, ending the curse's chances. Mahito reverts to his original form, and Itadori realizes he's already injured and barely standing. Just like a wolf chases a wounded prey, Itadori at that moment understood that the innocence of the two made them the same, but none of that mattered anymore. Mahito would die by Itadori's hands unless someone interfered. To the frustration of many, Kenjaku interrupted the moment by attacking Itadori. Betraying Mahito, he absorbed the curse and extracted its innate technique, definitively killing the curse born from humans. Using idle transfiguration on the barrier covering Japan, Kenjaku initiated the culling game or extinction migration arc. So much death, right folks? Most of the characters we grew attached to. I confess a tear fell from my eyes while making this video. But tell me, guys, which Shibuya death impacted you the most? I'll be reading all the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep getting videos on Jujutsu Kaisen or any other anime you'd like me to cover. With that said, see you in the next video.